VCY America presents Crosstalk, a nationwide call-in program discussing issues that have an effect on our families, our communities, our churches, our nation, and our world. Crosstalk, an opportunity for you to voice your concerns for biblical principles. And now live by satellite and around the world on the internet at vcyamerica.org. Here is today's Crosstalk.
Well, thank you, Gordon, and welcome to Crosstalk. Vic Eliason here, your host for today. Folks, the story we have today is one you will not want to miss. It's one that is probably one of the most outrageous treatments of a teenager I have ever seen. We're dealing with values and the treatment of a teenager in public school. But the abuse that this young man has received hasn't come from other students. It instead has come from the school administration itself. It is unbelievable. His name is Brandon Wegner, a 15-year-old student, has been called ignorant by his school system superintendent, bullied, censored, punished, and held up to ridicule, all for writing an op-ed article explaining the biblical view of homosexuality and supporting natural mother-father adoption. Now, what happened? It was a school newspaper article. I'm looking at it right here. And it shows a picture of the two writers standing in mock battle with their fists raised, one toward another. This is a pro-con thing. This is a for and against thing. Brandon Wegner and Maddie Marquardt. And the copy, I've got a page of the school newspaper in my hands right here. And it is unbelievable what happened. Well, first of all, Brandon Wegner is a Christian. And the whole issue was homosexual partners be able to adopt or not? Should they be able to adopt? Who sets standards of a suitable parent? And so there we see the debate, and there's the picture in the middle of the article where these two students are standing with their fist raised in mock battle, really. It was a verbal battle. But journalism, both of them writing their views. Now, Brandon Wegner is a reporter, and Maddie Marquardt is a copy editor for the school's newspaper. Brandon wrote an article that supports a biblical view. Let me read just a part of it. He begins this way. In the United States, only 11 states allow same-sex marriage. Most do not because our government is generally based off of religion and the Bible. Also, if one is a practicing Christian, Jesus states in the Bible that homosexuality is a detestable act and sin, which makes adopting wrong for homosexuals because you would be raising a child in a sin-filled environment. That's what the young man is saying. He quotes Leviticus 20:13. He goes on, and he talks, finally, he says, God made man and woman with many necessary different traits and characteristics, and a child needs both a mother and a father, not two dads or two moms. The article goes on for many paragraphs following, and he presents his position. But the opposing right said, according to the administrators at the Evan B. Donaldson Adoption Institute, law and policies that prevent adoption by gay or lesbian parents disadvantage the tens of thousands of children mired in foster care system that need permanent loving homes. And Maddie goes on and writes an article almost as long as Brandon. At any rate, what happens is absolutely remarkable. Shawano, Wisconsin, Community Hospital. Here's a young man that's pursuing journalism, and he writes this for the student newspaper, the Hawks Post. And eventually, they selected homosexual adoption. And he wrote a counterpoint in parallel columns, with Brandon taking the position that homosexual adoption is wrong, and he supported his position by citing Bible passages. Brandon wrote about his view of the importance of a family, having both a mother and a father. The discussion between the two students was very civil and very frank, a model of how people should discuss controversial issues with each other. But a homosexual parent read the article and protested. The school principal called Brandon into his office and told him he could not speak about religion, politics, or social issues in a public school. And without his parents' knowledge, Brandon was called into one meeting after another, causing him to miss study time for exams and even missing one exam. He was then hauled before Superintendent Todd Carlson, who told him that the column he wrote went against the bullying policy. Superintendent Carlson asked Brandon to recant his views, and when he would not, he told Brandon he was ignorant for having his belief. Then he said, "We have the power to suspend you." The superintendent then communicated with the school community and apologized for Brandon's article on homosexual adoption. The school officials then censored Brandon's article, forcing him and his classmates participating in the news writing course to physically rip the page out of the newspaper before distribution at their school. Well, guess what? Liberty Counsel is now representing the Wegner family and sent a letter to the school demanding an apology for its unconstitutional and irrational censorship and for Brandon's humiliation. You can see Brandon's article and a 7-page demand letter to the Shawano School District Board of Education by clicking on this site, www.libertyaction.org, and then there's a / and you put in these numbers, 10082 / offer.asp. Now, we hope to have that link on our website as well. So it will be on our website following the broadcast. But the Shawano school officials got it perfectly upside down. In a statement, the school sincerely apologized not for allowing the topic to begin with, or for rushing to judgment, or for violating a student's constitutional rights, but only for the biblical viewpoint presented in Brandon's writing. And under the guise of stopping bullying, the actual bullying at Shawano High School were perpetrated by Superintendent Todd Carlson and his subordinates, and certainly not the student. These school officials have displayed blatant intolerance of a view on homosexuality held by many people in our nation. The school's actions are shocking and totally unjustified, and as outlined in the demand letter from Liberty Counsel, the superintendent should immediately apologize and stop his bullying. Now, Liberty Counsel must be able to show up for battles like this. We thank God for Matt Staver and the Liberty Counsel, and the dealing with these political correctness and overt anti-Christian bigotry have been relentlessly pounding our culture for several decades, and these attacks have taken a terrible toll, says Liberty Counsel. As a consequence of the ongoing leftist indoctrination, our values and people expressing views contrary to the approved ultra-liberal script are now squarely in the real bullies' crosshairs. Sadly, pro-homosexual indoctrination is intensifying, but Liberty Counsel aggressively defends the rights of Americans who experience anti-Christian bigotry at the hands of misguided public officials. Now, ladies and gentlemen, let me just say this. Matt Staver put it in this frame. He says, our litigation team is working hard to keep on top of attempts to turn America into just another European-style godless, socialist state, and our caseload is growing as never before. We need to pray for Liberty Counsel. But as we look at this situation, folks, I mean, this thing made Fox News. This thing is all over, and here is a young man who has not yet been justified by the behavior that's going on. And may I just say this, the situation as we face it, is something that is vitally, vitally important for us to deal with today. And I'm going to suggest that as we go to the numbers in just a few moments, we are going to be asking you to pick up your phones and do something. This is an action point, folks, an absolute action point. And we are going to ask that you would take a point of action seriously. This is something that needs to be done. And so as we deal with this today, we are going to give you some phone numbers because your concerns from all over America. I mean, this young man deserves the defense of Christians across this nation. I mean, Shawano, Wisconsin. I mean, this is a little Wisconsin town here. But let me say this, that the school officials have taken such a vicious response. Folks, the situation we're talking about here, there is a policy, an anti-bullying policy. But you know something? There has to be fairness on both sides of the issue, because the policy of the Shawano School District, they have a policy that points out that they do not discriminate, that they have no discrimination policy. I mean, it's again. Well, let me read it to you. Here is the district mission statement. Our school welcomes you to the 2009-2010 school year. And they talk about the welcoming the students there and talk about this faculty and staff are committed to providing you with the best possible experience during your high school years. Well, I wonder what kind of a policy has occurred here in the life of Brandon. This is something that I really find very difficult, the situation here as we look at it, because non-discrimination policy on behalf of the Shawano School District is this. In compliance with federal and state law and Department of Public Instruction Rule, PI 9, the policy of the Shawano School District shall read as follows. It is the policy of the Shawano School District that no person may be denied admission to any public school in this district, or be denied participation in, be denied the benefits of, or be discriminated against in any curricular, extracurricular, pupil service, recreational, or other program or activity because of a person's sex, okay, that's their gender, race, that's their ethnic background, and color, national origin, religion. It happens that Brandon is a Christian. And so it appears that his religion was discriminated against. Ancestry, creed, pregnancy, marital, parental status, sexual orientation, or physical, mental, emotional, or learning disability or handicap. And it goes on, listed all of this. Now, folks, this is something that really needs to be addressed. And may I say this, that we're going to come back with some phone numbers. There need to be hundreds of phone calls today. Stick with us. We'll be right back.
Back to Genesis with Dr. John Morris, scientist with the Institute for Creation Research. Dr. Morris, what is meant by the term convergent evolution?
Chris, convergent evolution is a term invented by evolutionists to explain that animals which are not closely related sometimes have the same design feature. Evolutionists don't think that one evolved from the other, but that the feature evolved twice. There are many examples of this, such as the eye in humans, which is almost identical to the eye in squid. Another example of convergent evolution is a suite of swimming muscles in the shark, identical to the muscles in tuna, but not in other fish. These two are separated by 400 million years according to evolution. Chris, I think that evolution is so impossible, it's not even going to happen once, let alone twice. Instead of convergent evolution, think of creation. Back to Genesis creation.
Thank you, Dr. John. For more on the foundational principles set forth in Genesis, visit us on the web at icr.org.
Well, folks, this is unbelievable. And, folks, when we have school officials, when we have even city officials that will ignore this type of behavior, the voice of sensible people across this country need to be heard in the halls of Shawano High School and in City Hall as well. Now, folks, we're not talking about race. We're not talking about color. We're not talking about religion here. That wasn't the issue. We're talking about a lifestyle that is sexual behavior that is being singled out here. This young man was talking about people who believe it's appropriate, even against nature, to have sexual relationships with the same gender. And according to natural law, Biology 101 in any high school can explain to you that biology doesn't work that way. Number two, we have behavior becoming the criteria here of identity. We're not talking about a people group here, though there are those that have worked hard to make this appear that way. A people group? No. These are people who do things. It's based on their actions, behavior. And may I say this, if this law prevails, if we are to recognize a, quote, people group for people who have, and I hate to be so blunt, but who have sexual behavior that is in violation to nature and to God's Word as Christians, then the next thing we're going to have is a people group of child molesters. We've already seen that being advocated by certain people groups. Then maybe we need to have a people group called the Organization for Car Thieves, bank robbers, and perish the thought, defending bestiality. We had to deal with that in the military code of ethics not too long ago. Yes, I'm worked up. But as I see this today, I feel that it is important that the people who listen to Crosstalk let your voice be heard from all across the country. And let the school board know. I mean, I'll tell you this, that what I'm reading, there's a big lawsuit coming. But prior to whatever Liberty Council does, hopefully there'll be people, God-honoring people, people with moral values, people who regard school administrators who should have a more balanced view on what's right and wrong. Doesn't the Bible say when the wicked rule, the people mourn? But when the righteous rule, they rejoice? Well, I want to give you the phone numbers where you can pick up your phone and let your voice be heard. No screaming, no yelling, not even as loud as what I'm saying. Just let them know that as a taxpayer in the United States, and we have 9 stations here in Wisconsin alone, I hope just Wisconsin keeps the lines busy for all day today and tomorrow and the next day. And if you have to call every day, fine. Let them know until there's an apology coming from the Shawano Superintendent of Schools and the principal. I'm going to give you names. I'm going to do them slowly, so get your pen out, because here it comes. The Shawano Superintendent of Schools, who made those accusing remarks, telling this young man that he was bullying. May I give you his phone number? Shawano Superintendent of Schools, Todd Carlson. Here's his number, 715-526-3194. Now, hang on to that number because there's an extension coming after that. When you dial that number, it'll ask for an extension. And the extension number, I'm going to read the number one more time so you have it, 715-526-3194. And his extension is 8008. That's Superintendent of Schools Todd Carlson. Now, the Assistant Superintendent of Schools, which is in concert with Mr. Carlson, is Gary Cumberland. Phone number, same number, 715-526-3194, but a different extension. The extension number is 8006. Now, you need to also call the Shawano High School principal. His name is Scott Zwirschitz. I hope I'm saying it right. Zwirschitz. His name is Scott. He's the principal at Shawano High School, and I apologize if I messed up his name. The phone number at the high school, his number, 715-526-2175. The Board of Education president, that's Mike Eidahl. That's Eidhl, Mike Eidahl. And you call this number and ask for his office. Here's the number. It's right there at the school board, 715-526-3194, and ask for Mr. Mike Eidahl's office. The mayor of Shawano needs to hear from the people across America. The mayor's name is Maddie Marquardt. The phone number is 715-526-6152. 715-526-6152. Shawano Mayor. And lastly, the Wisconsin Department of Public Instruction in Madison needs to hear the voices of people from all over the state. 1-800-441-4563. That's 441-4563. That's 800-441-4563. You've got the numbers, folks. I hope that you'll use them today. And after the sun sets tonight, I hope that you'll keep the numbers and then turn around tomorrow and call again. And each of you, don't just call once, call again until you hear that there's an apology coming from the Shawano School Board and their minions, if I can use that term carefully, that apparently all the meetings that Brandon was brought into, dealing with a subject like homosexual adoption, and his position was opposing it, where his partner was advocating it. And his side was shot down. Tell me there's no discrimination in certain public education. I think it's time for phone calls. We're going to open our phone lines here as well. Oh, many of you have already called. Now, be kind, but in case you forget the name of the student again, remember, his name is Brandon, Brandon Wegner. Brandon, he's 15 years old. He's been called ignorant by his high school system superintendent. He was accused of bullying. He was censored, punished, and held up for ridicule, all for writing an article explaining his biblical view of homosexuality and supporting natural mother-father adoption. Our phone number, 800-733-9829. Looking for your calls today. What do you think? Am I worked up over nothing? Or is this something where the voice of the public needs to be heard? Folks, if you're a Wisconsin, you're a taxpayer, and your money goes to support public education. And this is what's been going on in public education. And my lines here are starting to flash. I hope they're ringing in Shawano. Folks, I hope you'll write those numbers down and put them on your refrigerator and call tomorrow. And call until you hear that an apology has been given and that the school has from what I'm reading here from the Liberty Council, there sounds like there's going to be big-time lawsuit as well. But it is time that these people in positions of public trust understand that they cannot walk over. They can have a policy that they don't discriminate against religion. But here is a lifestyle that is based on behavior, not inherited ethnic background. Simply a choice. And this is a fact. This is a choice behavior. And when it occurs, people identify with it and claim it's a new people group. Well, what happens if, as I said earlier, we have people performing all kinds of lewd and lascivious behavior, child molesters? Haven't we seen enough of little children destroyed already this year? And those who, even in the military, were seeking to uphold the merits of bestiality in their code of ethics? Folks, there's good reason to be praying for our country. We're going to go to our phones, and right now Tom is online from Wisconsin. And Tom, you're on the air. Go ahead.
Hi, Vic. Thanks for bringing up this subject, because I heard about this story weeks ago.
Yep.
But at any rate, I think now that we're debating whether or not gays should get married, and it's kind of we've already lost the battle when we're at that point. I mean, Brandon, I'm sure all of his points were just perfect. I haven't actually been able to read the article, but anything that's biblical is going to be right. And so I think Brandon's parents shouldn't have him in a public school, first of all, because you're never going to reform the public school.
Well, let me just say this, and that choice is theirs, but I will say this: as long as our court system and the liberties that our forefathers fought for and died for, I mean, we're not in a monarchy here today. We are still we have the rule of law to protect us. And if we do not use it, if we sit there and cower and run into a corner and say, well, go ahead and walk on me. No, there comes a time when we have to stand up and defend the liberty that God's given to us. And the day when we have a monarchy, well, that day may soon be around the corner. In fact, in some days, I feel like that's the situation now.
Well, that day is already here. We're living in a lawless culture. I mean, when abortion on demand is there, once you've legalized the murdering of children, well, then it's a lawless country.
Tom, thank you very much. From Wisconsin, we go to Oak Creek and talk to Peter. Peter, you're on the air.
Oh, hi. This story is even more ironic than you might know. That good student's essay apparently was solicited by the student newspaper for a point, so that he wasn't even looking to start a controversy.
No, if you recall correctly, it was a point counterpoint. I shared that. Were you listening at the beginning of the program?
Yes, sir. And it just reminds me of like Moses and Gideon, where they weren't looking for a fight, but they were told, hey, there's a fight going on, and we'd like you to be on the good side.
Well, thank you, Peter. Appreciate your comments. Let's go to Renee in Racine. Renee, you're on the air. Our phone number, 800-733-9829. Folks, have you called? Have you picked up the phone? Use those phone numbers and let your voice be heard. Those voices need to continue. Yes, this did not happen yesterday. But the issue is you must keep your phones going and let them know that they have stepped over the line. Okay, Renee, you're on the air.
Yes, unfortunately this is not uncommon. This is very common for people from the far left to batter down your opinions and force their viewpoints and call you stupid. Mm-hmm. And it's not a thing of education now. We're into indoctrination.
That's right.
Either you believe this liberal agenda or you're going to have a certain label on you. And as a young person, you have to give this kid credit that he's standing up to this with courage, because he was put under a lot of pressure.
He sure was.
And that's quite commendable that he can stand up under that.
Thank you very much, Renee. We're coming to a hard break. We'll be right back with more calls. This is Crosstalk.
Here at VCY, we believe that we are to be salt and light in our society. We strongly believe that people can make a difference and be a voice for that which is right. But there's something far more important than all of this, and that is your personal relationship to Jesus Christ. Or you may call congressmen every day on important issues, and you might hold a sign at a protest. But unless you know Jesus as your personal Savior, you're missing out on the most important thing in life. I'd like to send you a small brochure entitled, Where Will You Spend Eternity? This pamphlet shares with you in a very clear way the most important decision you could ever make in your life, and that's placing your trust in Jesus Christ. Our telephone number is 800-729-9829. Call and ask for your free copy of Where Will You Spend Eternity? Again, our number is 800-729-9829. Don't miss out on the most important thing in life. Call today.
And welcome back to Crosstalk. As we've been on the air, my good buddy and partner in labor and fellow worker in labor, Jim Schneider. We've worked together for a quarter century, and I'm just honored to work with a guy like this. He slipped into the studio and handed me some new material, which also is being sent across immediately to Matt Staver. This is not from some right-wing, biased religious group. No, this comes from the American College of Pediatricians, and it is their new writings in January of 2012. Now let me read this to you. Basically, I'm going to read the highlights here. It said there is sound evidence that children exposed to the homosexual lifestyle may be at increased risk for emotional, mental, and even physical harm. You heard me. There is sound evidence that children exposed to the homosexual lifestyle may be at increased risk for emotional, mental, and even physical harm. Under the document that they have provided, Biology Matters, over 30 years of research confirms that children fare best when reared by two biological parents in a loving, low-conflict marriage. Children navigate developmental stages more easily and are more solid in their gender identity, perform better academically, have fewer emotional disorders, and become better functioning adults when reared within their normal family. This is in part because biology contributes to parent-child bonding. Now, this is coming from the American College of Pediatricians, January 2012. I go on further. Research on homosexual parenting. Studies that appear to indicate neutral to favorable child outcomes from homosexual parenting have critical design flaws. These include, well, it goes on, it says, therefore it is impossible for these studies to provide any support for the alleged safety or potential benefits to children from same-sex parenting. Data on the long-term outcomes of children placed in homosexual households is sparse and gives reason for concern. This research has revealed that children reared in homosexual households are more likely to experience sexual confusion, engage in risky behavior, sexual experimentation, and later adopt a homosexual identity. This is concerning since adolescents and young adults who adopt the homosexual lifestyle are at increased risk for mental health problems, including major depression, anxiety disorders, conduct disorders, substance dependence, and especially suicidal indication and suicide attempts. The risk of homosexual lifestyle to children. Finally, research has demonstrated considerable risks to children exposed to the homosexual lifestyle. Violence between homosexual partners is 2 to 3 times more common than among married heterosexual couples. Homosexual partnerships are significantly more prone to dissolution. More prone to dissolution than the heterosexual marriages, with average homosexual relationships lasting only 2 to 3 years. Homosexual men and women are reported to be promiscuous with serial sex partners, even within what are loosely termed committed relationships. Individuals who practice a homosexual lifestyle are more likely than heterosexuals to experience mental illness, substance abuse, suicidal tendencies, and shortened lifespan. Although some would claim that these dysfunctions are a result of societal pressures in America, the same dysfunction exists in ordinarily high levels among homosexuals in cultures where the practice is more widely accepted. The conclusion: there is a significant risk of harm inherent in exposing a child to a homosexual lifestyle. Given the current body of evidence, the American College of Pediatricians believes it is inappropriate, potentially hazardous to children, and dangerously irresponsible to change the age-old prohibition on homosexual parenting within or whether by adoption, foster care, or reproductive manipulation. This position is rooted in the best available science. Where did it come from? You heard it. Where did this come from? The American College of Pediatricians. And when did it come forth? January 2012. And here we have a teenage boy who writes evidence supporting what this college says academically, and he gets called a bully. Going back to the phones. And let's go to Racine. Yeah, Racine, we're talking to Jan. You're on the air. Go ahead.
Yeah, you pretty much said what I was going to say. I can't see that superintendent or whoever it was standing up and saying, I think that we should definitely stick up for all these people that are that want to keep smoking. You know, we should push this, and we should let them know that that's a good thing.
See, it's a behavior, like you well said. Yeah. It's a behavioral trait. It's a sexual behavior. What about you can have alcoholic teenagers? Maybe that's a people group.
Right.
You have dope abusers. That's a people group.
Mm-hmm. It's so unhealthy, and yet they're pushing it.
Thank you, Jan. Appreciate the call. Brad in West Allis, you're on the air, Brad.
Hi, Vic. I just wanted to. Well, first of all, I was very refreshed to hear the American College of Pediatricians had the guts to actually put the information out there once they found it out. That's a good thing. But I just want to tell you, the number that you gave us for the superintendent and assistant superintendent,
yeah,
I just want to double-check. Was it 715-526-3194?
Okay, let me get through my papers. I got so many papers here. I will find them here. We've got, as we're sitting here in the studio, sometimes we have all kinds of pieces of documentation in front of us. And I will repeat them in a moment. Here we go. The numbers here. Shawano Superintendent of Schools, Todd Carlson, 715-526-3194.
Okay, when I called that,
no, hold it now.
They said it was out of service.
Well, out of service because it's probably being overloaded.
Yeah.
But then when you get that number, then it's extension 8008.
I didn't get that far.
Okay.
It was out of service before I got to the
Well, folks, write it down and call a little later. If it's out of service, it's probably because it's been loaded with response.
Yeah, and I called the principal. He was out of his office, naturally.
Okay.
I didn't get farther, but I'm going to continue with it when I get off the phone with you.
And Scott, I hope, or Brad, I hope there are many people that will put these phone numbers on your fridge and keep calling and let them know that Wisconsin taxpayers are not going to put up with this kind of nonsense.
Yeah, and you know what? You know who else wouldn't put up with it? Muslims. If this kid was a Muslim, they wouldn't dare call him names like that.
Brad, you want to know something? There was a junior high student out in the Oconomowoc area who in their classroom, there was a little boy who happened to be Islamic background. And so he was on the playground one day, and a little girl was standing there. He was not playing with the other kids. And so she took an interest, a concern, and asked him, he wasn't playing. Well, he didn't want to get all sweaty because he had to do prayers. He says, I'm Islamic. And so this little girl did not know that much about Islam at all. She was just concerned on a personal level that he wasn't playing. And so he said, I'm Islamic. Do you think I'm a terrorist? And she didn't even know what a terrorist, and these are junior high little kids, didn't even know what a terrorist was. She says, well, I guess. And this little girl was called into the administration and was given the same kind of treatment that this young man in Shawano was given. Literally, she's crying in the class, the principals, the teachers, ripping on her because she didn't even know how to answer this boy. And would you know that somewhere down the road, the next week, his mother comes to school with the Quran and the prayer rug and explains in detail to all the kids in the classroom how Islams pray, what they believe. Everything was done with no problem at all.
And I'll bet you the silence from the ACLU was deafening, right?
Right.
Yeah, as usual.
Brad, thanks.
Thank you.
Phone number 800-733-9829. And the number works. Jim just tried it. And so please don't hesitate. If you find the number is disconnected, it probably is just because of an overload. So just keep trying. Just keep calling in. And again, those numbers, the Shawano, for some of you just joined, I'm going to give you the numbers again. Shawano Superintendent of Schools, Todd Carlson, 715-526-3194, extension 8008. Then we have the Assistant Superintendent, 715-526-3194, extension 8006. The other one was 8008, okay. Shawano High School Principal, 715-526-2175. The Board of Education President, 715-526-3194. And call and ask for his office when you dial that. Shawano Mayor Lorna Marquardt, 715-526-6152. Does the City Council know what their school board's doing? And, of course, the Wisconsin Department of Public Instruction. Maybe the Department of Public Instruction needs to find out what the American College of Pediatricians just said. They'll probably get the ACLU after them. Okay, we're going to go back to the phones, and let's see. I'm looking here at Kathy in Rome, Wisconsin. And Kathy, you're on the air. Go ahead.
Oh, hi. Well, I did call and left a message on his voicemail, Mr. Carlson's voicemail, protesting his treatment of the Christian student, Brandon, and telling him that he was ignorant. And I suggested that he needed to apologize and apologize publicly. And then I got off. You know, if you give in to bullies, all you do is get more bullying. And It's time for the Christian people in this country, since we have the freedoms and the rights, to go ahead and speak up. If people would have spoken up and stopped Hitler before he really got going, there might have been a lot less problems down the line. And that's all I've got to say.
Well, you know something, Kathy? I'm not in any way eliminating or interceding to God for his intercession and working in the affairs of our country. But God in this country, by his grace, has given us the privilege of having input into a republic government. I didn't say Republican, I said republic government, whereby we have the privilege to speak and to speak out for righteousness. And the Bible warns us to abhor that which is evil and to cleave to that which is good. Thank you so much, Kathy. Appreciate it. We're going to go to, let's see, Elroy, Wisconsin. Somebody on line number 1. I'm not sure who we have. Okay, line number 3. Bill and Elroy, you're on the air.
Oh, yes. Hi. I just wanted to mention that the state of Illinois took away the foster parent program from Catholic Charities because they refused to place with same-sex couples.
You know, that is unbelievable, but again, there have been other Protestant adoption agencies that have been under the same kind of threat.
Well, the funny thing is they gave it to the Lutheran Church, which amazingly to me is allowing for homosexual ministers, and apparently has no problem with it.
Well, I'm sure in each case it deserves study.
For the Worldview Weekend Minute, I'm Brandon House. Our website's worldviewweekend.com. Have people like Bill Bright, Chuck Colson, and even Billy Graham helped to bring the religious Trojan horse into the camp of evangelicalism? All three of these men have received the Templeton Prize. Billy Graham in 82, Colson in 93, and Bright in 96. John Templeton was a man who was into spirituality, New Age teachings. He said that we need the next stage of, quote, human divine progress on the evolutionary scale. He went on to talk about the need to develop, quote, a body of knowledge about God that does not rely on ancient revelations or scripture, end quote. Why would any Christian leader accept the prize and the money that goes with the Templeton Foundation's movement and goals? Is very striking. Indeed, I believe it's possible that some of the men that have been upheld as some of the greatest leaders of evangelicalism have in fact helped to introduce the religious Trojan horse inside the camp of evangelicalism. Jude 3, 2 Peter, and Acts 20 warn of this. For the Worldview Weekend Minute, I'm Brandon House.
And welcome back to Crosstalk as we continue with your calls coming in. I hope many of you take the time to call. Right now we have Brandon in Toma. Brandon, you're on the air.
Hi, yes, thank you. The comment that lady just called and said that the principal, I didn't catch most of the story. I just caught that she had called and said that he should apologize to the student. The Bible speaks about receiving persecution as a Christian and to rejoice when you receive that persecution.
Well, it doesn't talk about abuse, though, does it?
Well, it's just us Christians here in the United States have never been known to persecution. You go over to Asia and Afghanistan, they kill you for your faith over there. We're very blessed living in a country where we can freely proclaim the love of Christ.
Brandon, I'm certainly in agreement with you, but there's also liberty that we have. Are you advocating that Brandon should not defend his rights in this government that allows him to speak? If you recall correctly, there were disciples that went to jail. They were forbidden to preach, and they went ahead and preached and went to jail. And then the Apostle Paul even exercised his right as a Roman citizen. And you're saying that we should not exercise our rights?
Jesus said to Pilate, my kingdom is not of this world.
That's correct. But also we understand that the Apostle Paul indicated that as a Roman citizen, he was endowed with certain rights. Was he sinful? Was he wrong?
No, but he was advocating not to be put to death.
Well, the issue, whether it's emotional, whether somebody's being torn apart by criticism or a child being offended, I understand, but I disagree with you to this place. I agree. We will be persecuted. We will suffer. But we still have liberty. As long as we have liberty, the day we have a monarch coming in and we're beheaded for our Christian faith, then we will understand that more clearly, I think, Brandon. Dorothy in Olney, Illinois. Dorothy, go ahead.
Yes, that last letter that came in from the Pediatric Society, I think the children should come before these people that choose to have same-sex marriages, and the only way to help the children is to make a law that whether it's a woman or a man, there's two of the same sex trying to marry each other, which of course we know is not biblical at all. But anyway, they're not allowed to have children. So if a woman has got a child and she wants to live with another woman and have a homosexual relationship, or whatever they call it, lesbian relationships, then she loses her own child. They take the child away.
Well, I don't know if there are limits to what, I mean, if it's her biological child, but the issue, I think, of the College of Pediatrics there, pointing out the hazard of being in this lifestyle was made very clear. We're going to move right along, Dorothy. Sorry, but we've got so many calls and so little time. Ty on the road right now. Ty, go ahead.
Yeah, hi, Vic. I heard a previous caller talk about kind of like just lay down and let this happen and all that. But I recall Jesus in the temple, they went in there and defiled the temple, and he threw them out. He got highly upset. There's a point of where, like the one lady said, bullying, you've got to stand up for the bullying, or they'll just continue to bully. And we as Christians, we can turn the other cheek when it comes to what people say about our beliefs, but when they bully us, we have to stand up like Jesus and throw them out of the temple, so to speak.
Was it not Jesus who even told his disciples to if you had two cloaks, sell one and get a knife, a sword, to protect themselves? And the issue of protection, he wasn't talking about being violent and going out and slaying people, but he again, the issue of being protective.
Right, standing up for what is right.
You bet. Ty, thank you so much. We've got to go right now to Twin Falls, Idaho. And Eldon, you're on the air.
Yes, I just wanted to clarify. The gentleman called in saying that the Lutherans condone the homosexual bit.
Yeah.
Now, that is just that one stinking faction of the Lutheran Church. They're not Martin Luther Lutherans.
Well, if you're talking about the ELCA, there have been congregations, one after the other, have been leaving them by virtue of their departure from the biblical standards.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Eldon. Just moments more to be with you. Let's go to Laird in Milwaukee. Laird, you're on the air.
I just want to make the point that Jesus never told us to lay down and be a doormat.
That's right. Thank you. Thank you very much. Well, folks, we've got about 2 minutes left, and I'm going to repeat those numbers, which I hope many of you will take the responsibility to call. Take the time to place that phone call. Put it on your fridge, and when you think about it, make another call. After the phone lines kind of cool down a little bit, I'm sure you'll get through. The Shawano Superintendent of Schools, Todd Carlson, 715-526-3194, extension 8008. Assistant Superintendent of Schools, Gary Cumberland, 715-526-3194, extension 8006. Shawano High School Principal, 715-526-2175. Board of Education President, this is Mike Eidahl, 715-526-3194. Call and ask for his office, Mr. Eidahl. Shawano Mayor Lorna Marquardt, 715-526-6152. And finally, 800-41, make that 800-441-4563 for the Wisconsin Department of Public Instruction. What I'm finding out is Liberty Council will be visiting very, very soon the Shawano School Board, according to what I'm reading. And if the Shawano School Board doesn't reverse its action, it suggests here that there could be some very active legal functioning going on. Well, that's it for today. I want to thank you so much for joining us. We may disagree on certain issues. That's your privilege. But our purpose today is to make you aware of what's happening in the public schools. And one party said, yeah, we've already lost the battle there. Well, that may be the case. But some people have no other choice but to put them there. And so we pray for wisdom. We pray for courage. We pray that God will give wisdom to us as taxpayers and citizens to raise up a voice against that which is wicked. When the wicked rule, the people mourn. And the righteous rule, they rejoice. Think about that today, and let's be righteous in Christ, not because we're so good, but that He is good. Thanks for joining us on Crosstalk.
Been listening to Crosstalk via satellite and the internet from VCY America. Views expressed may or may not be those of this station. For a CD of today's program, send a donation of $6 or more to VCY Take Ministry, 3434 West Kilbourne Avenue, Milwaukee, Wisconsin 53208, or download by RSS or podcast from crosstalkamerica.com. And join us again for Crosstalk.